This week's Q&A is going to be a little bit more of a technical spin on stuff. We got a lot of questions about ins and outs of the race car, how we run it. So this is kind of a fun deal for me. I appreciate it. Keep them coming. We'll get right into it. 660 Outlaws. Why do you not run beadlocks on the Shadow when we run it on big tires? A traditional wheel that we run like on radials, and a lot of people run on big tires, has a beadlock. Basically, it's a ring on the inside of the wheel, ring on the outside of the wheel, sandwiches the bead of the tire, stops the tire from turning on the wheel. When we run big tires, sometimes we run beadlocks. What you're talking about lately is my Outlaw setup. Sometimes we run an NHRA. This is a typical 36-inch 1750 tire on a 16-inch wide wheel. When you look at it, it looks like just a normal wheel. There's no bolt pattern. There's no ring pattern. What it is there's a basically think of it like a tire inside the tire. And we did a cutaway here to show what this looks like. There's no screws, no ring, no beadlocks, no bolts. Basically, it's a bladder that mounts inside of the wheel. This has its own valve stem that inflates to a different pressure than the air pressure in the tire itself. When you inflate this inside liner, call it a liner. It's basically a bladder, but it's a liner. It squeezes the tire and shoves the tire out against the rim, essentially pinching the sidewall of the tire between the liner and the rim. Basically does the same thing a beadlock does, with the exception of it changes the characteristic of how the tire reacts to going down a racetrack. By adding this liner on the inside of the wheel, you decrease the surface area between the liner and the surface of the tire. So without this cutaway, you can see these things, of course, not inflated, but you'll have the tire here. So basically, you'll have yay much surface area for tire distortion versus what you'd have all the way to the rim with a beadlock. A beadlock has more traction sitting on the starting line. Beadlock will generally out 60 foot a liner. A liner tire has less traction sitting there, more traction when it goes by the tree in the shake zone. A little more forgiving in the shake zone with a liner. That's why you'll see them a lot on blower and turbo cars. Beadlock definitely has more traction sitting there. If we're on a very bald racetrack, very slick track, we would have a beadlock on. We carry both to the racetrack all the time. There's no right or wrong way to run it. It's basically crew chief oriented on how you want to run that thing. Normally, the inside liner runs between 40 and 60 psi. Outside tire pressure is like a standard slick. It's generally 4.5 to 6.5 to, for a door car. Fuel cars and funny cars run 7-8 pounds of craziness. But that's pretty much it. Kind of simple and definitely another tuning tool. You hear me talk all the time about all the knobs that we have as crew chiefs on these things. Definitely another knob that we use. Thank you. 70 Nova Chick. Yes, you got to respect mama. Talking about Matt bleeping out my bad words. Okay, since you're sitting with a blower right behind you and gaps on the injector blades, what's the story, if there is one, behind the injector blades being blank at all the NHRA Pro Mod races, starting with Indy, but not at the World Series of Pro Mod, the Midwest Pro Mod race in Texas, and the World Street Nationals in Orlando? So it's kind of a funny story. So Belushi's been kind of wearing me out about having gap on the injector blades at NHRA races and DNQ in 2 races in a row. When we leased our superchargers from Chuck Ford. When we got supercharger back, it had a new injector on it, and we didn't have any more letters to put on it. Didn't have those letters. So Indy had no letters. As a matter of fact, we go out there and win the race, win the U.S. Nationals with no letters. So then we're thinking, okay, maybe it's a thing. Maybe like we're messing up with – racers are superstitious people. Like if we went around and I dance like a chicken in the staging lanes before then, I'm going to dance like a chicken before every single round. So we win Indy, nothing on the butterflies. Then we go win St. Louis with nothing on the butterflies. So it's a definite thing then. We think, okay, we definitely got this thing figured out. Then we went out and stunk it up, went out first round of the last 3 races. So I was like, screw this, I'm putting my gap back on there. So then we put gap back on our screw blower, going to the Midwest race, and then we won Orlando with the gap on there. So now having gap back on there is the tradition. So that is the superstition. So no telling what you may see next year. I need like an injector that's got like 10 blades on it so I can spell stuff out. So like I can be like, you suck, or I'm gonna crush you, or you're about to get destroyed by 5 cars or something. And we can just rotate it out. Maybe we get Matt to build one of those like neon things where you can program the stuff that's in store signs, and I could just change it round around. That'd be awesome.